All right, good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. The April 26th meeting of the Nantucket Board of Health is now open. Just to remind you all, this meeting is being audio and visually recorded. The public comments, are there comments from the public on any item that is not on the agenda today? Someone up there, yes. Would you come down here, please?
To the Board of Health? Has it been considered or?
That's not on the agenda for today, but we can definitely bring it up in the next meeting. The issue about Article 59 with town meeting was that it's unenforceable. Glyphosate can only be banned by the state or federal entity.
Gotcha.
But we have had conversations, and we'd be happy to bring it up again, put on the agenda for a discussion. But really, what it's going to have to be is we're going to have to refer to the state. Regardless of whatever we do here, the only people who can ban glyphosate is the USDA.
We've discussed it, but I think
thank you.
Roberto answered it correctly and well. All right, minutes. The minutes for March 22nd. Comments? Corrections, additions? May I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion on the minutes of the last meeting? All those in favor of adopting those minutes say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye, they are adopted. We have a request for additional loan monies from 34 Arkansas.
Yes, the original estimate was a little low. They forgot to put in the extra cost of what the IA was going to be. They gave a quote for a conventional system rather than an IA system. So we need to request, they're requesting a little bit more money to cover that cost. So $10,000 extra.
$10,000 extra. At one point, we're talking about looking at capping some of these loans.
Yes, so
We're going to talk about, not this meeting, next.
we weren't going to talk about this meeting, but we were going, because I needed to request the more monies, because this, the first $2 million we're not allowed to put caps on, but the next $2 million are.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. So what I did do for this one the board did request for all future loans was a breakdown of where it came from. So I did put it in the packet.
Right. Okay.
The way the estimates were done on this one, a lot of the electrical work, they're not doing any extra landscaping. The surveying, were all put into one large estimate. But moving forward, we're going to ask to just get a more detailed invoice
Right.
from.
And when will we run out of that first $2 million?
We're on the last $200,000 right now.
So we will have to adopt
Yeah,
rules.
rules
coming.
once the next ones come in. The motion this town meeting did not have that exemption for
Yes.
a cap, so we will be able to.
We
put
will be able to
caps.
do it. Great.
Yes.
Okay, any questions about the
So,
request for a loan?
I just had one quick question. Can we make any further deliberation on that tranche of money contingent on getting the guidance, getting the whatever guidelines we are before? I don't want to. So if we get blow through the 200 and we start getting applications, I'd like to have had made those decisions ahead of time.
Yes.
Yes, I'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay, any questions about the item on this meeting for additional money?
I make a motion to approve the loan application.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor of approving the amended
Aye.
loan application, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye, it is approved. Thank you. Public hearing, 43 Appleton Way condemnation for an unpermitted triplex. Roberto, can you
Yes.
I gotta recuse myself from this.
go right ahead?
So we received a complaint that Kathy and Artel responded to. There was a unpermitted housing inside a building that was permitted as a painting shed. So what we did was we issued the emergency vacate, the order to vacate. In this case, the work that was done is still can't be kept as a habitable area because the septic system is not big enough. So we do need to declare it uninhabitable for moving forward. And I believe the owner is here if you would like to speak. But
All good.
No comments? Any questions from the board?
so we just need to make it uninhabitable.
That's it.
That's it? That was-
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion
Yes, we
to.
need a motion.
What is the motion to say?
We need the motion to declare it unfit for human habitation.
So I make a motion that we've declared this property unfit for human habitation.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor of the motion to make the property unfit, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. Motion is carried. Camp regulations for bathrooms. Didn't we do this last year?
Yes, this is a different camp though.
I remember long discussion on this subject.
Yeah, this one's a different camp. With this is where they're requesting to use just the one bathroom that is there. This is for a small camp, I believe 5 to 8. 5 children. 5 children. Oh,
Do you want to come up and identify yourself and just,
Yeah.
we're set.
You're
I think
set.
so. See you, Rick. See you, Rick.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Hey, how you doing, girl?
Hi, I'm Janet Flanagan, and Janet Flanagan. You're welcome. The camp is just for 5 children. The base is typically used at my house. I haven't had a camp license for 2 years there. Had a family childcare license there. I do have 2 bathrooms, but one is through our bedroom. And my husband has a number of medical issues that require medical devices and medication, so I'd rather not use that second bathroom. Again, it's just for 5 children. And I have a 1 bathroom on the hall that could hopefully suffice for that.
Do you ever anticipate you would have more than 5 children?
The most I ever have is 6. I've never had more than 6 in the years I ran it as a family childcare or as a camp.
Questions from the board?
Are there any code requirements?
Other than the typical, the building code, the requirements from the camp, the state camp licenses, this is the only variance that's being requested.
I'm okay with it. So I make a motion that we approve the variance request for camp regulations regarding a bathroom.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor of granting a variance on this camp for the bathroom limitation, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. Variance is approved.
Thank you.
41 Millbrook.
Yes, so this one is a variance. I believe Mr. Malloy is here, actually. If Mr. Malloy would like to introduce it.
Good afternoon, Dan Malloy, Site Sign Engineering for the applicants and owners. 41 Millbrook Road. The owners are looking to add a half bathroom. And under the current code and the Board of Health regulations under new construction, any increase in square footage or any building alteration that requires a certificate of occupancy requires system upgrades. In this case, excuse me, we're not adding any flow, not adding bedrooms. We're simply adding a half bath to service the house in an outdoor area. The system has passed inspection. It is an IA system in the Hummock Pond Watershed District. However, based on the regulations and the definitions, the physical leaching area would have to be upsized based on the definition of new construction.
But it is an IA system.
It is an IA system. However, the regulations clearly state any addition of any space really whatsoever that requires a certificate of occupancy under the building code must be upgraded. The only upgrade requirement here would be expanding the leaching area. So we're asking for a variance of that condition.
Comments on this one from the staff first?
Okay, I'll try to put it in perspective. The system was inspected in 2012 and failed on groundwater separation. So in 2006, it was 5.4 separations in Hummock Pond watershed. So in order to make that right, they installed an IA so that they could get the 5-foot separation. Okay, this is a 1976 pre-95 septic system. So the leach facility to today's standard, on my calculations, and I would also, check with Dan on this, is 266 gallons a day. All right, it's a 5-bedroom system serving 5 bedrooms right now. And if they didn't do anything to the house, they could keep it. But where it's a pre-95 system, they're doing new construction, which is they're putting in a bathroom and they're also doing other renovations within the house. But the bathroom, because it's increasing the square footage of the house, triggers the new construction, which then would trigger the upgrade of the leach facility to today's standard of 550 gallons rather than 1994 standard of 550 gallons. So, that new
What was the 260 gallons?
well, if you take the calculations from 1976, which were for 550 gallons, and you use today's calculations, it comes up to 266 gallons per day. And like I said, if they didn't touch the house, they could keep it and everything would be fine. Or if they did the renovation within the footprint, they could keep it. But they've tripped a trigger, which is new construction.
Right.
They've added additional square footage, and it's an opportunity to bring this system into full compliance, and have a system suitable to, infrastructure suitable to serve the dwelling. I mean, it's this new construction definition is very helpful in getting upgrades as we move forward. Similar to, but not the same as Nantucket Harbor watershed. When a property sale goes in, they get an IA. When they pull a building permit, they have to get an IA. It's similar but different.
Upgrade the system here, not just necessarily the IA, but just the field as well.
Yes. So
Okay.
that's so the building permit came to us. We denied the building permit because the leach facility did not comply with new construction.
Questions from the board?
So they haven't started the renovation, they haven't started the addition to the bathroom?
No, they haven't. They can't get a building permit.
So
until the issue
if
is
they're
resolved.
redoing the inside of the house, can't they find enough space without putting an addition on to put a half bathroom anywhere?
They've looked at that, and unfortunately, no. If that were the case, then I wouldn't.
Yeah,
even
but if
be
they
here.
put the half bathroom in, it's still increasing the flow. I mean, it's
The bathroom doesn't change the flow; it's only bedrooms. So the trigger here is
it's
the
the
physical.
it's the opportunity. You're right. It's the opportunity to get the field fixed. Gotcha.
Which seems like a good idea.
Yeah, since the 1976 to 1994, the science has shown that they had been
Right.
actually undersizing the fields.
I understand. Questions, comments, discussion?
Well, the other question I have is, do they have enough room to extend the field, right?
The system can be expanded. Yes, it's
They
just
can-
physical space to expand it.
Okay,
Fine.
so
It's just strictly an economic consideration. They'd rather not expand it if they
Right,
don't
but
have to.
there's it's the opportunity to upgrade the system. There's room for the field. It's would be kind of hard for me to approve this variance unless my colleagues have a different view.
No, I kind of feel the same way. Yeah. It's an
Just
opportunity to get that 76. I mean, it's where the rules, we could change Hummock Pond to mirror Nantucket and Nantucket at some point, and it's going to be an automatic thing.
Yeah.
it would be something to think about if they didn't have enough room to extend the field. But They have enough room.
They have
to
enough
extend the
room.
field, so it just,
Yeah.
So you ready for a motion?
Yes. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we deny the variance request for 41 Millbrook Road.
Do I hear a second?
second.
All in favor of denying the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman denies the motion as well. The variance is denied.
Thank you.
4 Fisher's Landing setback. This is a setback.
Yeah, this one's a setback. Do you want to?
Anyone speaking for?
Yep. Well, yeah, I'll be speaking for
Okay,
the.
but the owner isn't.
No, the owner and engineer is, I believe, Don Bracken. I believe it's Don Bracken.
Yeah, it is
I mean,
Don Bracken, but you could-
this is a hydraulically failed septic system. It's been failed for years. They have setbacks to foundations and property lines that they need relief from to put in an innovative alternative septic system in Fisher's Landing. They need relief from a well septic from the 150, but they still make the 100.
Make 100.
So that's all good. This is maximum feasible compliance. They're putting this thing in the best possible position they can. It's sort of a no-brainer,
Yeah.
certainly an environmental upgrade and a better situation than we have, and they're doing the best they can.
Sounds good to me.
And what's the staff recommendation?
Approval.
Approve, yeah. I mean, we're getting a better system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we approve the variance request for 4 Fisher's Landing as outlined by the staff.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of granting the variance for 4 Fisher's Lane, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman agrees, and it is approved. Food permits, small-scale seasonal food permits.
Yeah, so this one is more just to get a sense of the board.
Okay.
We're looking at revisiting the fee schedule again this later this year. We haven't done it in about 3 years. So one of the issues that we have seen that came up is every once in a while we'll get a bake sale request where, for example, the skate club will try to do a bake sale, and they get 3 or 4 bake sales in this summer period. Well, they have to pull a temporary permit each time, and those things are $30 each, so it doesn't even make it worth it. So what we've been doing policy-wise is the food code allows us to use a temporary permit that's good for 14 days. So they would have to squeeze those bake sales into that 14-day period. So in the discussions that we've been having is, I wanted to see what the board's idea was if we were to set up a small scale, something like a 10 event permit that's a single $50 to $100 permit that's good for 10 events over the next 6 months or so. So people would have to use those.
It sounds more efficient, and it probably saves some of your time.
We're trying to make life easier for a lot of people on the island, especially Anne and Kathy.
Well, it would make the staff a little less work, and it'd be easier on the people. There's no big health issue here.
It's not a major health issue. Usually it's the events that have are just the cheese plates and the little grapes, like the Artists Association or the bake sales or the little things like that ends up the permit costing more than what they actually fundraise. So we don't want to be that sort of a burden. And then at the same time, every single time a temporary food permit gets brought to us, we have to get allergen serve safe recommendations every single time. It kind of kills some staff time. So I'm just looking to see if we can continue this. Obviously, this summer we'll have to continue on with the status quo. But when we go to look at the fee schedule again, when we open the public hearing, because that requires the notifications to the newspapers, whole 9 yards. If you would like to see a nice breakdown of how we can do this, and I can provide. I meant to look up how many temporary permits we issued this last year, and I forgot to do that. But we do issue a lot. We do realize that we might be giving up a little bit of revenue. However, we do spend more in personnel costs than we are taking in when some of these permits. So it'll be kind of a wash here.
Comments
So
from the board?
So if you issue them a permit for 10 times,
Yes.
what would they just come in like the second, third time, so you can keep track and issue them
That's exactly right. Well, we would have to write a procedure and everything like that. It's just I didn't want to get to writing procedures
Right.
if the board wasn't going to be amenable to it.
Right, as long as you kept track of how many.
Mhm. And we would keep track of it. We have our electronic permitting system that we keep track of. So we would know the dates.
Right.
Sometimes they have the dates ahead of time, like the Artists Association. They know when their openings are.
Right.
So they can give us all 10 dates on that first
Yep.
in that application.
I just,
Yes, sir.
so when the Artists Association has an opening, they have to get a permit to serve wine and cheese, or to serve wine and cheese?
They actually have to get a 1-day pouring license.
I know the point, let's say.
And then they end up getting the food permit as well
Wow.
every time.
I think we can make this easier.
Yeah.
I don't know if the rest of the board
It
agrees,
sounds
but
fine to me.
Okay.
I would.
Having done it myself,
Yeah.
walked the walk. I'm very much in favor.
I think you have consensus here to move ahead with a simpler way of doing it.
Sounds good. So we'll start working on a simple way. As far as this summer goes, we'll continue on with the regular temporary permit, but we've been letting that 14-day period go so that they can do the multiple events in that 2-week period. Okay.
Okay. Now we have the director's report, although my colleague has a suggestion about agendas and director's reports,
Sounds good.
and I like it, so go ahead.
I wondered, given that our agendas, for the most part, are 9/10 variance septic sewer issues, by the time we get to the director's report, the public has usually left. And the board, I think, has 1 foot out the door. And I wondered, given that we are a Board of Health and we're expanding to Health and Human Services, if we could possibly flip the agenda and start with the
The director's
director's report.
Absolutely.
I think
There's-
that's what we're
Good
going
to
to.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I mean,
That's
I control the agenda, so unless there's great objection, we'll do it that way.
no, that sounds great. But I would recommend putting it after public comment.
Oh, yeah. We'll do public comment first,
Yeah.
and because you may end up getting public comments on your comments.
Exactly.
So that's fine. So we'll do that from now on.
Sounds good. Just in a quick update, we had town meeting. Enoch brought up a good point. We had a article that was referred to the Board of Health, which was the banning of glyphosate, the herbicides that is Roundup is really what it is. And as I mentioned to Enoch, the problem with that regulation is that warrant article is that I just blanked out. Is that it's only the state or the federal Department of Agricultural Resources are allowed to regulate that. So regardless of whether we vote to ban it from this island, we can't ban it from the island without the state banning it themselves. So so if people start asking about it, if you get asked about it, why we're not necessarily hearing it, it's because it's not in our hands. We don't have the jurisdiction over it. We don't have jurisdiction over it. So I would recommend that they speak to Congressman Keating or even Elizabeth Warren and John Kerry, barring anything with reelection. So we'll go with there. And then moving forward, Hank has graciously joined us again this summer.
Welcome back.
We're glad to have Hank, and Hank has immediately made the fertilizers quake. So we've been just in the last month or so between Natural Resources and Hank, we're really close to the triple digit in fertilizer inspections, just between Hank, Jeff, JC, and myself. And then we've done 6 fertilizer trainings already. It's renewal period from that first round of renewals, the 3-year permits. So we're expecting about 200 fertilizer permits to be issued this year. We've been doing it with the new fertilizer video that we're testing out, and we've gotten some pretty good feedback from that already. I've been introducing it in Spanish, and Jeffrey has been introducing it in English. So we've been getting a little bit more of a response with that. Unfortunately, we still don't have it in Bulgarian, so that's one of the things we're working on. And then We're in full swing for Daffy. Yes,
On
sir.
the subject of fertilizers, what about compliance of the providers of fertilizer on the island?
Cormac Collier actually we were just talking about this yesterday. Cormac went into Marine Home and Island Number, and he was looking at what they have. They have been starting to pull the non-compliant product because we can't force them to do it. But as the information has been getting out there and as the trainings have been going and as Hank and JC have been out there really doing these fertilizer inspections, the demand for phosphorus fertilizers is almost none.
great.
So they've been pulling them off the shelves.
Good.
And they just haven't been ordering them. So Pavlin over at Island Lumber has always been a
He's been-
supporter
right.
of this, and he's been really great. And Marine Home is starting to pull the other stuff. We still see the tones. For example, Hydrangea Rose Tone is 3 parts fertilizer, 3% fertilizer, phosphorus. So what we've been having people do is if they're going to use rose tone, they need to show a phosphorus deficient soil test, and people have been complying. This has really started to gain traction.
I was, someone I knew recently told me they were very proud. And I asked, because they said they were fertilizing their property. And I said, are you following the regulations? And she said, yes, I use organic fertilizer. And I was trying to explain that, phosphorus and nitrogen are organic.
Yes.
So, I mean, there may be,
Yes.
we still have to keep educating people, not just the landscapers, but the people that buy their organic fertilizer.
I think that's where it started. I think that's the next step is at the point of sale, getting information out that organic doesn't necessarily mean good. We can organically compost anything we want, and that's a nice nutrient-rich
It's wonderful.
soil.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It could
Lots of
it could be
phosphorus.
the equivalent of a 30-15-30 fertilizer, which is 15 times what we allow on the island. It's not, and it's none of it is slow release. It's all fast release nitrogen. So it runs off with rain.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that organic potting soil that Espoma makes, that's the perfect example. The flower bed soil. If you don't have that plastic liner underneath your garden bed, you're leaching that straight into the
Maybe it's time for
groundwater.
another letter to the editor about
That's a great idea.
things like organic may not necessarily be good.
That's
It's
a
the
great idea.
concentrations of the actual ingredients. It's more important.
And it's probably
well-
more expensive if it has the word organic on it.
That's exactly. It's really a marketing decision.
So if we could draft something, it could be short.
Sounds good. And I will also talk to Cormac and see if the land council is willing to do something around the same time or
Maybe.
2 weeks in a row.
Maybe land council and the health department, the board of health could write a little something.
Sounds good.
Drafts. I can work on it with you, and just to remind people it's that season again and pay attention.
Sounds great. No, that's a great idea. I always forget about the usefulness of the newspaper here. And then lastly, as one of the projects, it's a long-term project that we're looking at, but along with the land council, the water company, natural resources, the sewer department, and DPW, and us, we had a meeting recently, a few weeks ago, to discuss testing, water testing, laboratory testing. The Wannacomet Water Company spends approximately $70,000 a year to test their water that they pump out. The sewer department tests about $75,000 to $80,000 a year worth of testing. DPW is close to around 20 to 30, and natural resources is also around $30,000 a year. Ours is much less because we subsidize ours through the funding. But if we were funding it all ourselves, we would also be looking at around $15,000 to $20,000 a year. So one of the things that we've been discussing, Cormac at Land Council has been successful at getting a hold of an anonymous donor that's willing to donate some price matching money to help build a water laboratory. So we've been in very preliminary conversation about this, just to see what would be needed first, what are the testing that we're doing? Can it be all done through high pressure liquid chromatography, or do we need multiple different types of laboratory equipment? Things like that, other than a simple distillation. Both wastewater and drinking water need to be separate labs, but they can be cohabitated in the same building. So
I mean,
it's
is this you measuring the same things in different places?
very similar things in different places.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so there's certainly savings there.
Exactly. So there's savings to be had. For example, all across every department, including ours, we always check for total K-dol nitrogen. If we were to be able to do that in a bulk, it would save tons of money.
Right.
Right now, we pay per sample.
Does the field station do some testing?
They're not a
They used
DEP
to.
certified
They're
laboratory.
not certified.
Yeah. So what this donor is looking at is possibly doing a DEP certified laboratory
Wouldn't that
on
be
island,
great?
which would be
Keep it here.
amazing. And there is definitely the demand for it because we require testing from our IA systems. We require water testing. So
Future well,
And-
well testing.
the well testings, there's definitely the demand for it. And just the cost savings alone would pay for a person
A person.
to run it. So it's just a preliminary conversation. We're really excited,
Nice.
fingers crossed,
Keep
and
going. Let us know
then we'll
how you do.
be in touch. Is there anything?
Anything else?
I had one question. I had a former commissioner from the mosquito control ask me a question, and I know it's not in our jurisdiction or yours, but I just wondered if in your town administration, have you heard if they've started doing testing? Because now is about the time it should begin.
I believe DPW has already been in contact with VDCI to start the larva sighting, but I will confirm with that and get back to you.
Go ahead, Jim.
Just a couple things from the select board. I guess I call this a public health event. Last week, I believe, we had a kind of a catastrophic shutdown of the wastewater treatment plant in Scottsett because of a dumping of paint and paint thinner that caused the bacterial load to
Yeah.
go away. And we had to transport all of the raw sewage from Scottsett to Surfside and bring,
Live.
brew from Cisco and other bacteria to get things growing again. And so I don't know if you want to add anything to that. But
So thank you, Jim. There was somebody dumped approximately,
20
David.
or so.
David was telling us that I think some people were under the impression that they're allowed to dump 10 gallons of paint or paint thinner into the sewage system per person. So there was some hundreds of gallons that was dumped, and they're trying to figure out where it came from in Sconset. It ended up in the Sconset treatment plant, and it killed off all the biology. And the treatment plant went down. They had to, thanks to people like Steven here, they had to pump everything out, get everything over to the the Surfside treatment plant, and then get live biology from the treatment plant out to Sconset to keep that thing limping along. They're still not back up to 100%. They took a big hit on this one. They have to dismantle some of the tanks completely, clean them all out to make sure that none of the residuals of the antibacterial material is there, and then rebuild it. It is a teachable moment. And we're looking to, just like with the fertilizer at the point of sale with Marine Home, Island Lumber, things like that, to put the DEP paperwork that was given to David, the outreach material in multiple languages, so that when they sell a 5-gallon bucket of paint, they also get this no dumping, that we don't know where that came from, that 10 gallons is okay. 1 ounce isn't okay. You can never dump something that is a volatile organic compound. So it's anyone who's watching, anyone who watches it later, this is all archived. No dumping of any paint, any mineral spirits, any paint thinners, as it has catastrophic damage. David and DEP are in the process of tracing where it came from, and they're hoping to find out where the paint came from and find out who
Is
did
it
this.
traceable?
It'll be hard to find out where it's from. It's, there's a lot of construction going on
Yeah.
in the East End and crunch time and very little flow to the plant.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah.
whatever construction's going on and trying to clean things up, there's not enough flow to dilute
Yeah.
what's happening, and it
Right.
did a number on the
Yeah.
biological aspect.
As far as the traceability goes, Steve is absolutely right. We won't be able to pinpoint who the person was, which is where it would end up. But they have already been able to narrow it down to a certain amount of blocks. So now they're going to go door knocking to find out where the residual paint came from. So they still see. David said that he pulled a manhole yesterday. David said that he pulled a manhole and you see the white streak where the paint came through. So they're hoping to trace it back to which house it came from.
You think it was dumped inside a house, like down a toilet or something like that?
Yeah. They think that it may have been dumped inside of a house, mainly because there's no telltale sign in a manhole.
Right.
Sometimes you'll see the splash in a manhole. You'll see the grate that has some residual paint on it, like what happened in downtown last summer on Center Street, where there was a ton of paint dropped and the manhole was damaged. But they haven't been able to find that, so they believe it may have come from a house.
Just a couple of things. So I think the genetic mice presentation has been rescheduled for May
23rd.
23rd. So,
May 23rd.
and then lastly, last night the select board, took up the issue of recreational marijuana at I think the special town meeting. The town approved certain zoning changes to where recreational marijuana and medical marijuana where it would be located. The town also voted to implement a moratorium until December 31st. And the reason we asked the town to do that was because the Cannabis Control Commission was going to be coming out with their final regulations on April 1st, which they did. It clarified some things, but it also raised a number of other issues. So we're going to do an outreach in terms of communicating it. But the board also voted last night to solicit input from groups that might have an opinion or be thinking about the use of recreational marijuana on the island and how and whether and how many. So a letter is going to come to our chair from chair of the select board. Basically asking open-ended question of, is this something you're thinking about, and what are your thoughts on it? So the letter's also going to go to Fairwinds, to ASAP, to the medical staff of the hospital, and maybe some other organizations. But I just wanted to make this board and the chair aware of that's coming.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? So we meet 3 weeks from now,
Yeah, May 17th, I believe.
May 17th.
May 17th.
And your cap on loans will be a couple months. I think Jim's right. We need to have it done before we run out of our money.
I can put it as an agenda item on next month's, and then if we're because that doesn't have to go to a public hearing, that can just be an internal policy.
All right.
So if we can put it on the
If you like
agenda, put it on there. If we like it, we can vote it in. If we think some revisions, we can keep going. We can at least start the discussion in May.
Is there something going to go in there about landscaping limits?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll talk maybe in a few days about some communication about fertilizer education for the general public, which seems we can't
Yeah.
walk into everybody's yard. Hank doesn't have the time or the authority, but we at least let people police themselves.
Well, The comment was made a little while ago, actually by a former select person, to why don't we just get a drone? And that was a very interesting conversation that day.
Okay,
So-
if I hear no objections, we will adjourn this meeting until next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.